Okay, so as part of the 20-hour break-in service, we're going to go ahead and do the oil change on the transmission. We've already done the oil change on the front differential, the rear differential, and the engine oil change. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and get the transmission oil change done. Now, as part of that, to get to that, we actually have to do a little bit of work on the inside of the cab to get to some of the top parts of the transmission that we can't access from underneath. So let's go ahead and get started on that now. Okay, to do the transmission oil change, the tools you're going to need to get this job done: service manual with your specs and capacities. Again, I'm using a cordless impact drill with a socket attachment, Phillips or a straight edge screwdriver to get the push pins out, a pair of pliers to get the oil filter strainer out. I've got an extension, a couple of sockets. I've got a 10 millimeter and a 12 millimeter. 12 millimeters for the drain bolt, 10 millimeters for the lockdown nut for the filter drain. A couple of torque wrenches, capable of doing inch pounds and foot pounds. Drain pan, gravity feed, oil funnel. I'm using a couple of quarts of 1040 Racing 4T Mobil 1 synthetic oil. Again, it's your preference of what you use, what you want to use. This is what I'm using on mine. Okay, as I said, we've got to work inside the cab a little bit here to get to the top of the transmission. So things that we've got to do is we've got to remove the seat bottom, seat cushion, the console cover for the ECU. We've got to get underneath the upper part of the paneling here so we can get this whole side panel off. And so let's go ahead and get started on that. That just pops out like that. The center console just pops out as well. It's just kind of snapped in there. You get it out just like that. Okay, now we're going to remove this console, which also has a little screw-in piece. Now there's two up top. I shouldn't need to remove these off the top because all I got to do is get to these pins holding it in here. Okay, with this lifted up out of the way, I can get to these other screws right here. Okay, with that last one out of the way, we're done. Okay, with all the bolts and retainer screws removed, it will pop out, but with the seat in here, it's going to be really tight right in here, so it's going to be a little snug to get in and out. It might be easier just to pop those 4 bolts and remove the seat back as well. It's up to you if you want to do that or not. We're going to try and pop it out without having to do that, but you know, let's see if it'll come out. And there we go. Okay, with the side panel off, we now have access to the transmission, and so we can actually get to the filler plug and dipstick right there. So we are ready to start draining everything, and let's move to that next. Okay, I'm underneath the vehicle. As you can see, I've already got the skid plate off because I was doing the work earlier on the oil change and the differentials. So I pulled all the skid plates off. Here is the drain bolt that we've got to remove. That is a 12 millimeter. So you can see everything's really muddy and gunky underneath here from all the mud and stuff that we went through, but we're going to go ahead and break that loose. Pop that off, and then I've already got my drain pan here. I don't have my gloves, which I forgot to put on again, but there we go. So we're going to let that drain right now, and we'll get this thing cleaned up. And then the next thing we're going to do is pull the transmission filter screen. and make sure there's no gunk in there either. Okay, looking towards the front of the vehicle, on this back bar, you can see the oil was draining from right here. The back bar right here, right above it, you can see there is a plug that has a filtered screen on it, and it's held in place by a 10mm socket that's also a Phillips head. And so you're going to want to pop that out. That's going to cause a lot of oil to drain, so make sure you got your drain pan handy. I would also suggest probably having some pliers, because that's just kind of wedged in there, so you're going to want to pop that out with a pair of pliers or something. So let's go ahead and do that right now. And break that loose. Now, no oil should be coming out, but I don't want to drop that in the oil. Grab my pliers. And no oil came out, surprisingly enough. So we're going to go look at this in the sun and inspect it and make sure we're okay. And we'll do that right now. Okay, so we're looking at it here. Get a closer look at it here. And it overall looks pretty good. A little bit of muck and stuff in there, but it doesn't look bad. I don't see a ton of metal shavings or anything. I see a little bit of stuff just from normal break-in period stuff. So I think overall it looks pretty good. I'm going to clean this up a little bit before I pop it back in and tighten everything down and start putting the oil in. I've already cleaned up the filter, so it looks good. Pop that back in. Put the bolt back in on the top, and that tightens down to 10 Newton meters, 7.3, 7.4 foot-pounds. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, we're good. And that part's done. We're going to put the drain bolt in next and torque that down. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put the drain bolt back in. The surface looks really good. Already cleaned the bolt up and stuff, as I said, so we're going to pop that back in. And then that torques down to 14 foot-pounds. Okay, and we're good there. And now we're going to go ahead and start accessing the top and putting the oil back in. Okay, so there's the fill plug, so we're going to go ahead and pop that out right now, and then I'm going to go ahead and use the gravity feed based funnel to fill this up, and it should fill up to 1.6 quarts, which should just top it off just nicely. So let's do that now. So the gravity feed funnel makes it really easy to get the oil in there. Okay, so now we got the dipstick. We're just going to check the oil. Need to tighten it down, we just need to dip it in, and we are good. Seats back in, and the cab is done, so now all we got to do is put the skid plates back on.